Across Europe and beyond, the release of the Epstein files has detonated inside ministries, royal courts, parliaments, and cultural institutions, forcing resignations, criminal probes, and public reckonings. Governments are falling not because crimes have been newly proven, but because proximity to a known predator is now politically radioactive. Meanwhile, in the United States, the country where Epstein operated most freely, amassed his wealth, secured his plea deal, and died in federal custody, the political class remains curiously untouched. The silence here is not accidental, it is structural. I'm Carl and welcome Mind Chimes. America, a pedophile protector state. How the Epstein files have rent the fabric of governments worldwide, and why Washington's heart barely stirs. In the alchemy of modern scandal, few dumps of raw evidence have carried the seismic force of the recently released Epstein files, a sprawling archive of correspondence, photos, and transactional records from the estate and investigations into Jeffrey Epstein's global network. Over 3 million pages, thousands of videos and images have been made public by the U.S. Department of Justice, a culmination of legal pressure codified in the Epstein Files Transparency Act. What followed was not an echo, but a shockwave. Capitals in Europe and beyond are convulsing with resignations, investigations, and political crises. Yet in Washington, the tremors have barely registered on the Richter scale. Europe, a continent unsettled. In Bratislava, the internal corridors of power were shaken when Miroslav Lajčák, Slovakia's national security advisor and former UN General Assembly president, stepped down after his extensive email correspondence with Epstein became public, even as he insisted it was part of his diplomatic duties. Across the Channel in the United Kingdom, the scandal has blossomed into full-blown political theater. Former Labour luminary Peter Mandelson resigned his party membership amid renewed scrutiny over financial transactions and images linked to Epstein, prompting deep unease across Westminster. Al Jazeera. France, too, is feeling the quake. Jack Lang, former culture minister and head of the Arab World Institute, resigned after files revealed extensive contacts with Epstein. French prosecutors have opened financial investigations into Lang and his daughter. But perhaps no country epitomizes the unraveling more than Norway. There, a corruption probe has been launched into former Prime Minister Thorbjørn Jagland, and the monarchy itself has been dragged into the controversy, with Crown Princess Mette-Marit publicly apologizing for years of correspondence and visits with Epstein after his 2008 conviction. From Stockholm to Warsaw, officials at the UN, in royal households, and in national governments are bracing official inquiries or have already resigned in the glare of public scrutiny. These are not trivial encounters. They reveal a latticework of social and political access that long outlived Epstein's criminal record. Eastern Europe and beyond, bureaucracies in the crosshairs. Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland have announced wide-ranging investigative teams to comb through documents for possible legal or ethical violations linked to Epstein, probing how a convicted predator managed to weave himself into the diplomatic and elite fabric of multiple states. In Scandinavia, diplomats and envoys with otherwise impeccable reputations are licking their wounds. High-ranking figures are placed on leave or investigated, and even entities like the Nobel Peace Prize Committee face unprecedented scrutiny. NBC5 Dallas-Fort Worth. The U.S., a quiet abyss. Here's where the story diverges into contradiction. The Epstein files are American in origin, released by the U.S. government, yet the direct political fallout inside the United States has been remarkably restrained compared to the global tumult. Some American associates named in the documents, such as former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers and lawyer Brad Karp, have faced professional consequences, including stepping back from roles. Republican lawmakers have compelled testimony from figures like former President Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump has repeatedly faced questions about his historical ties to Epstein, though neither faces charges connected to the new disclosures. Yet no top U.S. official has resigned in direct response to the files, and no federal investigation of comparable magnitude to those in Europe has been launched. Despite public frustration over heavy redactions and repeated DOJ missteps that led to inappropriate disclosures of sensitive information, the political machinery in Washington remains unshaken. Legal experts and journalists have pointed out that the dynamics of parliamentary systems, where confidence and optics can unseat leaders overnight, differ sharply from the U.S. presidential system's structural insulation against immediate accountability. What it really means. The global reverberations of the Epstein files are a mirror held up to power, a testament to how proximity to wealth and influence can enmesh leaders in reputational peril, even absent criminal charges. In Europe, this mirror has cracked mirrors in ministries, ruling parties, and royal palaces alike. In Washington, the mirror has barely been lifted off the dresser. The contrast says much about political cultures, institutional checks, and the elasticity of accountability. Whether this quietude will hold, or whether further releases will deepen the pressure, is the story still unfolding. What remains clear is the broader truth. In the slow burn of democracy, transparency is not a catalyst unless there is political will to act on what it reveals. And so the question is no longer who knew Jeffrey Epstein, or when, or how often. The question is why entire governments elsewhere collapse under the weight of association while America's political class shrugs, checks its calendar, and moves on. Why accountability abroad is treated as civic hygiene, while here it is dismissed as partisan inconvenience. Epstein did not orbit power by accident. He was invited, protected, laundered through respectability by institutions that still insist this is old news. It is not old news. It is unfinished business. And until consequences reach the architects, the facilitators, and the beneficiaries, not just the dead man at the center, the United States is not a bystander to this scandal. It is its final safe harbor. If this story unsettles you, it should. If it angers you, good. And if it makes you wonder why accountability travels so easily across borders but stalls at the Potomac, then you are asking the right questions. Mind Chimes exists for exactly this reason, to ring the bell when power hopes the noise will fade. Share this piece. Talk about it. Forward it to someone who still believes transparency is enough without consequence. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, because silence is the last refuge of the protected, and attention is the only currency they still fear. Like, subscribe, share. The chimes only matter if you hear them.